Hey everyone, what's up? I'm Jack, this is Jill, and we're the Cynical Siblings. Today we're reviewing The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Season 1, Episode 4, The Whole World is Watching.
It was directed by Kerry Scogland and written by Derek Kolstad. What you drinking?
I am drinking one of my favorite wines. It is a Cabernet Sauvignon. No. This is a Pinot Noir. Is that what I'm drinking? Yeah, I'm drinking a Pinot Noir from the Willamette Valley.
What's it called?
Four Graces.
That's right. Okay.
It's so good I can't remember the name.
Sure, we'll go with that.
What are you drinking?
It's Amber Cream Ale. It's another Michigan brewer, and it's good for spring because it's a little bit lighter.
You like those brewers from Michigan, don't you?
I do. I wonder if there's a reason for that.
You know what else is interesting? You like local.
Yeah, I do. I really like local. I support local. I appreciate local. I like our local artisans and bakers and brewers and all of that. Yep.
Interesting.
Those two statements are completely unrelated, though.
Yes. Yes, they are. Okay, so what did you think of this episode, spoiler-free?
Spoiler-free. Really liked it. Definitely made up for last episode. Lots of things happen. So many interactions. So many themes. Holy moly. What did you think?
That was incredibly emotional. You need to tone it down there.
I
need you to just calm it down. You're going to break things at this rate. I really enjoyed this episode. That was my overly emotional reaction to this. It was good.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, let's get
into spoilers.
Let's get into spoilers. So, what did you really think of this episode?
Sam really shone in this episode. I loved how he brought his psychology to bear and his experience as a soldier. Loved all the stuff with the Wakanda. I can't think of what they're called. Door something.
Oh boy.
We should have looked that
up.
I should
have looked that up. Okay,
apologies.
You keep talking, and I'm gonna just look that up real quickly here. I can't think of their name right now, and that's bothering me.
Yeah, that whole sequence that was strategically really dumb because the guy got away. But also a really fascinating set of reactions between the characters and not at all unexpected. So I really appreciated that. I like what they're doing with Carly. She is complicated and interesting and relatable, but also just really going over the edge. And I really like how they did this with John Walker. I think we all kind of knew it was coming, but I appreciate how they spent a little time building his character before they just made
Dora
him.
Milaje.
Dora Milaje. Okay. Dora Milaje. I
hope I'm pronouncing that right.
That sounds like what they said in the thing.
Yeah.
Episode.
No, my Wakandan is not up to snuff right now.
Right. Yeah. How about you? More detailed with spoilers.
So I agree that I think what Sam Wilson did, or what they did with Sam Wilson's character in this episode, is fantastic. I really like the fact that when he confronts Carly Morgenthau, it's with that psychological background where he used to help veterans. So if you go back to Captain America Winter Soldier, he's kind of helping veterans in a group to deal with their PTSD and to reintegrate back into the community. And he falls back on that training and that knowledge of psychology in order to confront Carly. And I like that they did that. I think that, I just think that they keep making Sam Wilson a very multi-dimensional character. There's a lot of aspects to him, and they're really digging into that, and I really like that about this. So I definitely agree. That piece was great. Watching John Walker, the new Captain America, psychologically fall apart. He goes up against the Dora Milaje, the Wakandan women's military group, I guess, and gets his ass kicked. And he has that moment where he's like, they weren't even super soldiers. And I'd really like to turn to the fact that, if you follow this series and you go back to where he first shows up, John Walker, and he's, winning high school games and gets like medals of honor, like, has this guy ever like faced losing things?
Right.
Steve Rogers had to lose all the time.
Mm-hmm.
This
most
guy,
of his life. We'd see very little. But actually, most of this guy's life, he was.
Yeah, Captain America: First Avenger. He gets his
butt handed to him.
Yeah, by bullies. Doesn't do well on dates because he's small. Like, the guy just cannot win, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's who he is, and he still throws himself on a grenade. John Walker's the guy who'll throw himself on a grenade, but he doesn't lose, or he doesn't know how to lose. He's never, he kind of seems like that guy who's never had to deal with, like, I don't know, like, having to, like, lose. And so this is this was just really interesting to see him start to break down, like, oh, they weren't even super soldiers, and they kicked our asses, so I did like how they're handling John Walker.
Yeah, and I think too, like, the fact that there's every indication that he's never been on the losing end. I think is what makes him fundamentally unable to see Carly as anything other than a lost cause and a total villain. He doesn't like that Sam Wilson's going to go and try to talk to her. He thinks that's pointless. Meanwhile, we actually see the conversation, and Sam is getting somewhere. Now, we don't know how that's going to end up, but he catches her out and forces her to think a little bit differently about what she's doing and how she's now taking the seat of power and making determinations on other people's lives, and how she's making that okay for herself, which is exactly what she's so angry at the establishment for. And so I think because John Walker's never been on the losing end and has never had to deal with getting kicked while he's down, he just fundamentally cannot see the humanity in Carly and what she's facing and dealing with, which I think makes for a really excellent dynamic, the way that they're showing it as a balance.
Speaking of Carly and John Walker's Captain America, I think they've created a really great contrast between her character as the revolutionary super soldier and his character as the establishment super soldier, right? Because when Carly is talking to one of the other members of her team, and I can't think of that character's name right now, but he says something like, I was a really big fan of Captain America, and then he kind of references that she's the new Captain America, or is the new spirit of Captain America in his eyes. So they've kind of like set her up as a, she's got the super soldier serum, she's in charge of other super soldiers, and is this revolutionary. So who's the real Captain America? Is it Carly Morgenthau, or is it John Walker, who's got the whole American establishment behind him? He's got the shield. Neither of them are Captain America, though, at the end of this.
Well, two things. One, I mean, the whole point of the first half of the first Captain America movie is that Steve Rogers gets chosen because he doesn't have the entire American establishment behind him. So, like, he is the underdog, and that's why the one doctor pulls him into the program. But two, I feel like there's a parallel here between what's going on, what you're naming between John Walker's Captain America and Carly, and back in WandaVision, Vision and Ghost Vision. Which one is the real Vision?
Oh, right.
Now, to your point, not in this particular series, neither of these two is the real Captain America, but they do set up this kind of conundrum of she is more the spirit of Captain America, albeit twisted and evil, whereas he is the symbolism of Captain America. And arguably, without the two together, you're never Captain America.
That's because Sam Wilson's Captain America.
There is
I stand by that. It's the Falcon. Mm-hmm. Falcon should be Captain America.
Yeah, and as we've talked about in past episodes, and as they've established in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I mean, he's an Avenger. He's an American war hero. He can't get a loan to save his family's property.
Yeah, because he's the real Captain America. That's how most of us feel most days, is that when things are in trouble, like, we're not going to get a loan to save us, and we're going to have to figure it all out. I just think that, like, that really embodies where America is right now, mm-hmm. and who the American people are right now. So yeah, Sam Wilson, you should be Captain America. Next time, don't give up the shield.
Right.
Just take that thing and fly with it, literally.
Yes.
So I also liked that there's this, scene where Baron Zemo is shooting Carly Morgenthau, and, she drops the vials of super soldier serum that she's got on her, and he picks one of them up and looks at it, and, for a moment, I'm like, is he thinking about ejecting himself? And that's, what they're setting up there for, is there's that little question of what's he going to do with that thing. And then, because he's a zealot, he starts breaking them. And he's like, he's so against someone having a state of supremacy that he starts breaking them. And there's a lot of idealism in that. Mm-hmm. I mean, idealism that leads him to murdering people, so it's not very good idealism. But, I liked later on in the episode where Sam Wilson confronts him, and, he says, Zemo says something about supremacy and all that, idealism that he has. And Sam, who won't take the serum, who he just flat out says, I would not take the serum, points out that there are other ways of handling things than with blood, pointing out that, mm-hmm. All of these people who are going straight to shooting and killing, just none of that's Captain America. Mm-hmm. Because Sam Wilson's Captain America.
We're going to keep coming
back. I am, because that is Captain America right there.
Yeah. Well,
if it's not Steve Rogers, it needs to be Sam Wilson. That's just what it is.
No, I don't disagree.
Right.
Also, it's been written that way, so
Okay, yeah, there is that. Yeah, they did write it that way, but they're doing a good job of writing it that way.
They are, and when you're talking about Zemo, it makes me think about all the ways that they have people coming in from their ideological perspective, from their cultural perspective. So seeing John Walker's Captain America talk down to Okoye, and also then get beaten to smithereens, was a really fascinating dynamic. Zemo in the middle of all of that, putting his spin on everything.
I just want to point out that, Walker does kind of not treat Okoye with as much respect as she's due. I agree with that, but she also has that very establishment authoritarian line of, mm-hmm. The oh god, I'm getting
our
jurisdiction is wherever we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And this is what Carly's fighting against. You don't just get to walk around and state this is your
right.
jurisdiction.
But that's what I mean. I love that juxtaposition that all of the characters are standing really securely in who they are, and the writers are letting them do that. And I think it's really working because John Walker is standing very securely with the entire American everything behind him.
Right, right.
in that moment as well. So you really have these two worlds, these two world views really coming up against each other in that moment. And I think that they do the same thing with Carly. They do the same thing with Zemo, who wants to keep everything the same, even though that's not possible. You're not going to keep the whole.
Well, and he wants to keep everything the same through bloodshed, which
right.
is like really, he's literally keeping everything the same, including the authoritarian process by which we maintain certain structures. So he thinks he's better, and he's wrong.
I mean, arguably, he's also always been told he's better. He's won all the awards. He's done really well in the military. He's been honored.
Wait, we're talking about Walker now instead of Zemo?
Yes, Walker.
Okay, I was talking about Zemo.
Sorry about that. Yes, you were.
Yes, I was.
I was just thinking about...
But I think, like, you just made a really interesting point, because you could say the same thing about Zemo. He's a baron. He has all the money. He's had all the power. I mean, there's a very clear comparison between Zemo and Walker, right? Like, in terms of the fact that they've both been incredibly successful. The culture that they've grown up in has told them how successful they are. It's awarded them. They believe in their own success to some extent.
And their own rightness.
Right.
I mean, Carly arguably has at least a collectivist rightness behind her that is earned. And it's not to say that Zemo or Walker are not very capable. I mean, they're both amazing at what they do. But yeah, there's that sense that the system has bestowed rightness upon them. Rather than having to go out and earn it. So it's just a really fascinating set of dynamics. And then you see that Carly's trauma is really coming to play, but so is Zemo's. I think maybe Walker's is a little bit when they start talking about Afghanistan.
Yeah, something bad happened in Afghanistan, and he is starting to break. And of course, obviously, at the very end, he breaks. And I realized that so at the very end, his companion, his friend, Battlestar,
Lamar
Hoskins. Excuse me, Hoskins. He dies, and that's a really both it's a good scene, and that's extremely well done. It's also a terrible scene in that he dies right there, and it's pretty terrible. And I think they did a great job of playing that scene, of walking through that scene, of walking Walker through his process of dealing with Hoskins' death. And he does murder that member of the Flag Smashers, and that's a pretty rough scene to watch, and it fits in line with Walker's storyline in the comic books. But so I'm kind of not surprised that they went there. But boy, seeing him put that shield on with all the blood.
Yes, that final scene where he's standing there. Yeah. Yikes.
Yeah, although he's just watched his friend die, in some ways, I'm not going to say it's understandable to murder someone, but it's understandable. I mean, he did it for all the wrong reasons, and he also did it for all the right reasons. And that makes it nicely complicated, and I like that that's complicated.
Well, it's more complicated because the guy that he killed was a proxy for the person who actually killed Lamar.
And that's part of the problem. That's part of the complexity of the situation.
And the guy was also, subdued at that point.
Right.
On top of it. So, and this is also very public. So that's all happening. Yeah, I mean the way that they just did that whole arc, I really enjoyed that.
I like the complexity of it, you know, the entire psychological complexity of it. He just watched his friend get killed. He kills a member of the what are they? Flag Smashers. That's right. He kills a member of the Flag Smashers, but not Carly. Carly's the one who actually killed Hoskins. So I like how complicated that is, and how they're sort of walking a fine line between the psychology of all of these individuals and the cultures of all of these individuals, and really digging into some things. Yeah, this was a good episode.
By the way, just to mention, Carly calling Sarah.
Oh yeah,
that was a boss move. Damn, I mean, it went way south as soon as she started threatening Sarah, and then like all bets were off. But just
how did she get Sarah's number?
Yeah,
did they establish that?
They don't,
because they don't like have a tech expert that can like hack everything in their group, do they? Or do we just not?
No, but they have a worldwide network, you know.
I mean,
so they're able to set up some pretty like interesting bank heists and everything.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I thought they needed like a one sentence explanation for that.
But, that is true.
But that's a minor point. I'll let it slide.
Yeah.
Because everything else in the episode was really good.
Tight. Yeah.
Although, you know, I think that Sam was really nice to Carly after she threatened his sister and his nephews.
Yeah.
That was yeah, Sam is a much better person than I am.
And, you know, and then she's like, well, yeah, I wouldn't really have hurt them. And I'm like, yeah, you tell yourself that.
I don't know. You just killed a bunch of people like one episode ago. Like,
right.
I don't know about that.
Why would we believe that?
Right.
You know. But yeah, I mean, also what they're doing with the results of, you know, her trauma, but also then the decisions that she continues to make. Even though people in her own group are saying, not sure this is such a good idea. Even through her conversation with Sam, like she's kind of doubling down on all the things she needs to not double down on, especially now that she's killed Captain America's partner.
Hoskins, yeah.
Yeah, so that's not going to go well for her in the world.
Probably not.
You know, so yeah, just I really love what they did with this episode. I'm really curious to see what they do next.
I also want to point out that one of the big difference between Steve Rogers and John Walker, you know, we watched like we said, Steve lose a lot. Basically, he's very flawed early on, and he has to take that on. And John Walker just doesn't seem to be that individual, but you know, because he hasn't had to walk that line, and because he's, I don't know how to put it, because he's not had those exact experiences, I really like the fact that they've sort of like, once he does get he gets the super soldier serum here.
Right.
Yeah, that's really relevant. That's, he's got super strength in the actual comics, so like they finally kind of created that here.
It's weird how long it took us to get there though, because there was so much else going on, and also he took the super soldier serum, by the way.
But this is a guy who, there's a whole conversation here where I'm going with this, by the way. I trailed off, but where I'm going with this is that there's this whole conversation about supremacy, right? Mm-hmm. So, and it's happening on different levels. So, including a racist level, right? Mm-hmm. So we got to see Isaiah a few episodes ago, who is the Black Captain America, and there's this, even though he's got the super soldier serum in his system, he's not treated with the same deference that Steve Rogers is treated with. And so
that's an understatement, but yes.
Right. No, it is. It's absolutely an understatement. And so, you have this conversation about supremacy, like the concept of supremacy. And, again, here with Carly having the super soldier serum and Zemo talking about how that sense of supremacy is what creates this
Avengers,
the
and
Avengers and Nazis and all of those things, right? So you have that piece, and then you have the piece of John Walker, who's never had to deal with loss. So once he has to deal with real loss a couple times, once when he's fighting the super soldiers, once when he's fighting the Dora Milaje, I hope I didn't kill that, he has to take the super soldier serum. In order to figure out how to be okay, he needs to reobtain supremacy. And that's where I'm going with this. And I love that piece that he needs, or it seems like he needs that sense of supremacy in order to be okay with himself. And I think, there could be a lot to be said about the psychological problems with that. But I just like the way that they keep bringing that conversation into this series on different levels, in different ways, and from different perspectives. But always a sense of supremacy, always a sense of who's on top.
Well, and related to that, I like the way that Zemo puts... I find it... Okay, I don't like it, but I find it very interesting. The way that Zemo puts Nazis and Avengers into basically the same sentence. Because... we're all down on Nazis. We're all down on Nazis.
We are all down on Nazis. Nazis bad.
Always.
Always.
But, we still love the Avengers. And I think drawing the parallel between those two, because there are clear elements of, we have all of these superhuman powers. And that's kind of what draws us to the story in a lot of ways. So I think saying, there are some parallels with the Nazis forces us to think about, why do we really like the Avengers? What is it within us that kind of needs these heroes and this group of heroes? And are there any ways that could be twisted toward extreme nationalism and racism and murdering and violence and everything like that? I think they're asking that question, and I thought it was a really interesting question.
Yes, I agree. The way that Zemo parallels the Nazis and the Avengers is a really interesting observation, and I agree. There's a lot that you could pull out of the Avengers and go, this is not really okay. This is, why is it that Stark gets all the best tech? I mean, he invented it, but how come that's not something that others have access to? Why is it only Rogers has the super soldier serum? And then we see in this series that someone else has gotten it, and because he's black, he doesn't. He gets put in prison, and the original comic book storyline for his character is just rough. It's a hard story to read because it really deals with racism here in America just pretty head on from a comic book from a specifically comic book perspective. So, just there's so many different ways that we're talking about statements of supremacy and in this series.
Supremacy, trauma, responsibility.
Right. The establishment.
Yep. How do you change? How do you make change? How do you make change? Are there good ways to make change?
It's not by killing innocents, I can assure you.
Yeah, I like that she calls them robots.
Yeah, she dehumanized them right away. If you're dehumanizing humans, you are not on the right path of revolution, let me tell you. That's just a fact. You cannot dehumanize humans and have a healthy revolution.
Right.
Okay,
I think
I said all my things.
Yeah, we talked about all the things.
All right. Like, comment, subscribe.
Click the bell.
Click the bell. What else?
Yeah,
I'm so terrible at this stuff.
Yeah.
Do the stuff that you're supposed to do.
Do the YouTube thing,
Yeah, do that. All right. Cheers.